everybody, welcome back to Let's Talk Physical Media. My name is John, and I will be your host this week. And this is the weekly show where we talk all things physical media and anything in the world of movies or anything else that you guys want to talk about each and every single week. But we like to start the show off like we do every week with the news, and it was a very slow news week. Honestly, the only news that really got announced, and we kind of talked about this a few weeks ago, but it was confirmed finally that the Rocky Ultimate Knockout Collection will be coming to 4K Blu-ray. And this is a little bit disappointing if you're like me and last year you bought this right here, the Knockout Collection. So that's why it's called the Ultimate Knockout Collection, because now it will include Rocky 5 and Rocky Balboa. This one only has Rocky 1, 2, 3, and 4, and they were the only movies in the Rocky franchise that were missing were Rocky 5 and Rocky Balboa. But thankfully, they did give us Rocky 5 and Rocky Balboa in the 4K Steelbook version. So if you're like me and you have this collection, all you gotta really do now is go buy Rocky 5 and Rocky Balboa. If you want to watch Tommy Gunn fight in the street with Sylvester Stallone, which this episode we're going to talk a little bit more about Sylvester Stallone later in the show, but if you want to see them fight in the street, you got to get that Steelbook, or you can get the other Steelbook for Rocky Balboa, which isn't really one of my favorite in the franchise, but I'll probably grab it so that way I'll have them all. We already had all 3 Creed movies on 4K Blu-ray, so finally we're getting Rocky 5 and Rocky 6. It's a little bit disappointing. I really like the box art on the Ultimate Knockout Collection that has all 6 films in it, and that's the way I would really want to go, but there's no reason for me to get rid of this set and buy that set because it would just end up costing me some extra money, so I'll just get those Steelbooks, and they are basically the same design from the Steelbooks that did come out last year, so if you did buy Rocky 1, 2, 3, and 4 on 4K Steelbook, at least now you'll have the same exact box art for Rocky 5 and Rocky Balboa, so that's a pretty exciting announcement. We also have Twister up for pre-order over there on Groove. I know there was a little bit of a spot there where people were worried because they pulled down the pre-order thing on Amazon for a while there for the 4K Steelbook, but luckily Groove still had it up, and now it looks like there's going to be a standard edition of Twister on 4K Blu-ray. I'm going to pre-order the Steelbook as long as they're still in stock from Groove.com. Groove is also where you can pre-order the Rocky Collection, and Groove I think right now does have the lowest prices for the Rocky Collection and the Rocky Steelbooks, and for Twister, so that's actually pretty cool. Groove is a great website, and from my experience with them, they've always delivered everything on time and in great condition, so I could definitely recommend Groove if that's the way you want to go. And just one other little bit of news in the world of physical media. We kind of touched on this last week, but Challengers, which I said right now is my favorite film of 2024. I probably have seen Furiosa by this point that you guys are watching the video, but as of this recording, Challengers starring Zendaya is my favorite movie of this year, and it's only going to be getting a release on Blu-ray, which is pretty disappointing because I thought the movie, first of all, it looked and just sounded great. It deserves a 4K Blu-ray release, but that Blu-ray is going to also have no special features on it, so you're really buying a bare bones Blu-ray, and they're charging $26 for that right now. The way they overvalue brand new releases in the physical media world really does kind of bother me because it really is the lowest effort from the studios. They're really just transferring already a digital file that they're sending to theaters. Now all they're doing is either sending it to, streaming services, or they're sending it to get printed on disc. This is the easiest thing for them. If anything, I would think that the catalog titles would end up costing us more money because, they have to go through the full restoration process, transferring over special features, maybe giving us new special features, but when it comes to new releases, everything should be available and already, on a digital file that all you would have to do is just put it on a disc. What do you got to do? Create a menu system for a disc, or if, you're sending it to streaming services. And that's another thing, because I am a huge movie theater fan. Yes, this is a physical media channel first, but I like to go to the movie theater at least once a week, if possible, twice a week. I just feel like that's the place where I would say, I always kind of say, and other people have said this, like, it's my church. I go there, that's kind of where I can turn my phone off, and for like 2 to 3 hours, all I'm thinking about is that movie. I can forget about all my problems and all my woes and just enjoy a movie in the theater. It's their sound system, it's their theater. I don't have to worry about anything else. I don't have to worry about my dogs, my wife, just for a little bit of time. And it's just special to me. And it really does bother me that right now, movies in theaters are not doing too well. Even the movies that I'm not too interested in, it sucks to see them not doing too well. Like last week, that movie If, the new John Krasinski movie, didn't do too great in theaters. And I know some people really liked it, and some people, they're like, on it. Ryan Reynolds, he's on top of the world right now. He's got this, and he's got Deadpool and Wolverine coming out in a few weeks, or I guess, in a few weeks right now. Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes is really the only thing that stands out, and then Dune Part 2 earlier in the year. Other than that, everything else has struggled. The Fall Guy, which I also thought was a great movie, it pretty much bombed at the box office, and right now you can get it on Amazon. Yes, you have to pay $19.99, but if you want to watch it at home, you can, and for a lot of people, it probably is more feasible to watch it at home for $19.99 than going to a theater, especially if you have kids. I cannot imagine the cost of going to the movie theater with kids. I worry about going there, and I have the AMC Stubs A-List pass where I can see 3 movies a week, no matter what theater they're in, and that costs me like $24 a month. But if I want to get a soda or a popcorn, forget it. I might as well bring the deed to my house there because they're taking everything from you. And I understand, because this is the way you have to support movie theaters is, buying the concessions, going to the theater, or else we won't get them anymore. And that would really upset me. So I try and support theaters as much as I can. But I also understand that the modern world we live in, you can watch a movie on TV, on your own time, in your own home, in the comfort of your own couch, and not have to worry. You don't have to, especially if you have kids, you don't have to get a babysitter or anything like that. Again, that's something I don't really have to worry about, so I can go to the theater every single week, but I completely understand the rising costs. And it's just really upsetting to me and very worrying because I don't want to see theaters go out of business, but if movies keep doing this bad, it's going to be a change for a lot of us, especially the cinephiles. I just feel like movies in general are not the number one thing right now in the world. I feel like video games are really more popular. TikTok giving people that short form entertainment, really getting that rush of dopamine for that 30-second clip that they want. I mean, it's all over Facebook and Instagram as well. And we're not getting that many cinephiles, and it's very disappointing and it's very worrying, but as long as we support the theaters and support physical media, we will always have it, and it'll never go fully away. It's just that, it might cost us a little bit more, and you just see that in new releases. I just feel like they overcharge for new releases, and that's why they don't really sell too well. So that was my little rant on that. I just wanted to talk a little bit about Challengers and why I feel like that's being priced too high, and I would have liked that on 4K Blu-ray, and if is getting a 4K Blu-ray release, and that didn't do too well in theaters as well, that means they kind of had that pre-planned, and I imagine Challengers just from the beginning wasn't planned to go to 4K Blu-ray. Maybe in the future it will, but right now it's not, and it always makes me afraid to buy a Blu-ray because the 4K Blu-ray might be coming like next year, like Malignant, what Warner Brothers did to us, and there's so many other examples of this happening, and it makes you worried to buy the Blu-ray because it might come to 4K Blu-ray down the line. And should I buy it? I know I won't buy Challengers on Blu-ray just because that is a very bare bones release. If anything, that should only be coming out about $14.99 at the highest, in my opinion. So that's a little bit disappointing, and really that's all the news we got. So let's get right into the Q&A portion of this week's show. And the first question this week is from 021OM6, and they asked, Sylvester Stallone often gets overlooked because of Arnold. I know you're an Arnie fan. However, Stallone has been in many great movies. What's your top 10 Stallone movies? And yeah, I have always been very guilty of being on Team Arnold. Arnie was my guy. He's one of my all-time heroes. I really have always looked up to the guy, admired the guy, and of course I love all of his movies pretty much. There's very rare ones since about 1999 that he's ever missed. I mean, everything since like Terminator 3 though has been it's alright, but he's an older guy, but still, everything he did in the 1980s and the 1990s, I was there for it, and I still cherish it, and I still cherish it to this very day. I absolutely love Arnold Schwarzenegger, and Arnold was always competing with Stallone, and you were either on Team Stallone or Team Arnold. The funny thing is I shared a room with my brother Ryan for, his entire childhood. I kind of had a few years there before he was born, but he was a big Stallone guy, and we watched a lot of Stallone movies, because if anyone out there has ever shared a room with their sibling, you were splitting time with the TV, and he wanted to watch a lot of Stallone stuff. I wanted to watch a lot of Arnold stuff. Then we fought over the video games. So I don't look back on it too fondly because we did get in a lot of fights and someone always came out hurt, some broken ribs or some blood. So those things did happen. But as I've gotten older, I've really learned to appreciate Stallone a little bit more. And honestly, he has wrote some phenomenal films, directed some phenomenal films, and he does give some great, very underrated performances out there. And you know what? I'm going to rank my top 10. This is a great question. And honestly, it was a little bit hard for me to pick a top 10 Stallone movies because at the end of the day, I think my top 5 are the ones I really like. And then the bottom 5, I was like, all right, I kind of like this movie for like a certain reason. And we'll get into that because right now at number 10, I got Judge Dredd, which was remade in 2012, I believe, just called Dredd, starring Carl Urban. And that movie is so much better than this movie. But this kind of came out in that 1990s cheesy action era. And I kind of enjoy the movie for that. I don't really hate this movie. But again, it's at number 10 just because it was kind of hard for me to pick 10 Stallone movies, and I don't remember despising Judge Dredd.
I am the law.
At number 9, another movie I don't remember despising but haven't gone back to is The Expendables. Great idea, get all the big action stars into one movie. The problem is that story, the plot of the movie just all felt empty, and it just felt like we had people just there to make big cameos and just pop the audience and really forget about the script and just forget about everything else. It's just like, oh, there's the guy I like and there's the guy that you like. all that kind of stuff, and the movie itself just does not work for me. Number 8 is Driven. Many people might not remember this movie, and honestly, I haven't seen this movie in years, but because it's a physical media channel, fun fact about Driven, that was my first ever DVD that I mean, I might have had a DVD before, but I specifically remember getting Driven because Driven, I believe, came out in 2001. I was 9 years old. I was a big NASCAR fan. And my mom, there's been a running joke here on the channel. You probably heard, like, I asked for Titanic on VHS when I was a kid. My mom bought me Speed 2. Well, similar situation. My mom knew I liked NASCAR, and she saw Sylvester Stallone, who my mom loves Stallone, in a racing movie. She assumed it was NASCAR. I believe it's either, I'm pretty sure it's either IndyCar or F1, but it wasn't a NASCAR movie. Stallone plays a driver. And this movie is not very good, but I specifically remember the DVD snap case I got with my PlayStation 2 at Christmas 2001. You know, I got Grand Theft Auto 3 and NASCAR Thunder 2002 to play on PS2, but then on the other side I got Driven, and that was the first DVD in my DVD collection that I can at least remember. And I actually kind of forgot about that, but then when I was looking up Stallone's movies, I was like, oh shit, that's right. Driven. I like Driven. Haven't seen that movie in years. I remember liking it, but again, 9 years old. Number 7, speaking of movies I had to watch all the time, my brother, and I just talked about it with him a couple days ago, and that's Over the Top, the arm wrestling truck driver movie. And this movie is absolutely ridiculous. It only could come out in the 1980s to even make any sort of sense. Did people go around arm wrestling for real? If you were around in the 1980s, did that happen? Like, is this really that far out of left field? Because to me, every time I've watched this movie, it's one of those ridiculous plots that I just cannot believe that someone thought up, and it just could only come out of the cocaine 80s. That's the only thing I can think of with this one. And number 6, Copland. This movie's a lot of fun. I actually watched this movie not too long ago. The cast is stacked. Not only do you get Sylvester Stallone in this, and this was really him trying to show off his acting chops. He put some weight on for this movie, but it also has Robert De Niro in it. It has Ray Liotta. It has Harvey Keitel. It has Edie Falco from The Sopranos before The Sopranos, and I mean, it is a great movie, and you definitely should check it out. The last time I watched it was on HBO Max at the time. It doesn't have a good stream. I don't have the Blu-ray. I should pick that up. Maybe one day it will come to 4K Blu-ray, but it's a really good film. Stallone's actually very good in it. The only problem with that movie, it just came out in the era in the 1990s where these types of movies were like a dime a dozen, and it doesn't necessarily stand out except for a couple of lines in the movie, like the "You blew it" line with Robert De Niro.
Chance when we could have done something, I offered you a chance to be a cop, and you blew it!
But other than that, and I really do like Ray Liotta in this movie. And in number 5, I wore the shirt because the only restaurant to survive was the greatest one of them all, and that was Taco Bell in the movie Demolition Man. And this is the movie with him and Wesley Snipes facing off with each other. They have a rivalry that goes all the way into the future, and this movie is just a lot of fun. This is one I'm actually surprised hasn't come to 4K Blu-ray yet. It seems like the kind of movie that would. Maybe I don't know who has the rights to this movie. Maybe that's the reason why we haven't, but this does feel like one of those movies because in the 1990s, people loved Demolition Man. I really think people forget about that, because maybe nowadays it doesn't get talked about as much, but people really used to love Demolition Man. And at number 4, I only wanted to pick one movie from each franchise, and this might be considered like, what are you talking about here? This does kind of involve another franchise, and that's the movie Creed, which obviously could be a continuation of the Rocky franchise. But this is the closest Sylvester Stallone ever came to winning an acting Academy Award, because obviously he never really got to ever win that individual award, And he did a great job in Creed, and I just think that he didn't get the award because this is the Mark Rylance here, I believe, for Bridge of Spies, which is a great movie. But this is the best performance I think Sylvester Stallone ever gave in the Rocky franchise, except for maybe Rocky 1. But really, it adds so much to the Rocky franchise. Michael B. Jordan is phenomenal in the movie, and the Creed movies, they're usually one and done for me. I have revisited Creed more than any other ones. I only saw 2 once, and I still haven't seen 3, to be completely honest with you guys. I don't know why. I just haven't checked out Creed 3 yet. I gotta get those 4K Blu-rays and review them here on the channel at some point. But yeah, haven't checked out Creed 3 yet, which I don't have to worry about Stallone because I'm pretty sure he's not in that movie. But still, Creed's a great movie. And that brings us to the bronze medal winner, Cobra. And people might not like this movie, but I love Cobra. This movie is filled with just that 80s cheese that speaks to me. This would never exist. This is a guy who's like the hotshot cop. When you call him in when things are real bad, forget the SWAT team. No, you're calling in Cobra. You're calling in Sylvester Stallone, chewing his toothpick with those sunglasses, the leather, the car that only he would drive. banging out one-liner after one-liner. And Cobra is just a fantastic, enjoyable movie that is never going to win anyone any awards, but if you are looking to have a good time and enjoy yourself and watch a movie that came straight out of the cocaine 80s, you know, Arnold Schwarzenegger had Commando and Sylvester Stallone had Cobra, and they both kind of fit in that same area of over-the-top guys where they're basically superheroes, but their superpowers are that they're strong and somehow they just can't be beaten because they're strong and can do one-liners and have all these big guns and wear the sunglasses and the leather and the whole spiel. And this is why they were competing with each other. But I still really love Cobra. And it has a great shout factory release you guys should check out. Maybe it'll come to 4K Blu-ray one day. That'll be a treat, won't it? And then that brings us to number 2. And I wanted to only pick one movie in the Rocky franchise, and it was really hard. So I actually just went with Rocky from the Rocky 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and Balboa. I couldn't just pick one. I mean, he's consistent throughout. My favorite one is still Rocky 4, but Rocky 2, it's right there now. They're really close after my last rewatch, and maybe I'll rewatch them again before Rocky 5 and 6. Like I said, Rocky 5, soft spot in my heart. I like Tommy Gunn. I really do enjoy that movie. You know, the ring, my ring is in the street. Again, you can poke so many holes in Rocky 5, but it's still a great time. The original Rocky is an all-timer, best picture winner. Rocky 2 is a great follow-up. Rocky 3 is fantastic. Mr. T, and you get old Thunder Lips with Hulk Hogan. Then Rocky 4, that's the cocaine 80s that I love. So the whole franchise is great, and that's why Rocky has to be number 2. And at number 1, I've said it here before, and I'm not going to change my opinion on it. The best movie that Sylvester Stallone ever acted in is First Blood, the first movie in the Rambo franchise. I don't like any movie after this in the franchise. They all just become over-the-top action movies that, you know, the plot and the story are second to just having as many people killed and as many action scenes as you want. So that movie doesn't necessarily work for me. Well, you know, all those movies. But still, First Blood is an all-timer. Every time I watch this movie now, it gets better and better and better for me. It's one of the best Vietnam movies, coming home from Vietnam movies. It's not an over-the-top 80s action movie. Despite coming out in the 80s, it does feel like something that was left over from the 1970s. It has a great story, you know, really diving into people coming back from Vietnam and how they were treated. It's just such a good movie. If you haven't seen First Blood, it has a really good 4K Blu-ray. Not the greatest after I revisit it. It's starting to show its age, but still, if you're going to watch First Blood, try and watch that 4K Blu-ray. But either way, if you haven't seen it, First Blood is an all-timer. It's a masterpiece in my opinion. Absolutely love that movie. So that was a great question. Thank you so much. I really do appreciate it, buddy. And the next one's from Lord Raiden. This is a funny question. He said, should we be mad that the British stole James Bond from us? How dare they make him British and cast Sean Connery? Yeah, so if people don't know this, and I actually reviewed it here on the channel, the first time James Bond ever appeared on film was actually in an American movie. It's a TV movie, basically. It was an episode of a show, essentially, and it was a short movie, and it's actually pretty good. It's not bad at all. You know, they even called James Bond Jim because, of course, they Americanized it. They made him an American. So Lord Raiden is basically just joking around saying, you know, they stole the British from us because really, James Bond's a British guy, despite the fact that Sean Connery is not British and Pierce Brosnan isn't British. So, you know, despite the fact that for London, James, despite the fact that he's MI6's most famous agent, you know, he hasn't been always played by British guys, and the first time he was ever played, he was actually an American not working for MI6, so I get that joke. I really like that. Pretty damn funny. And yeah, the British did steal James Bond from us. He could have been an American. We don't have many American heroes here, do we, guys? Nope, we need James Bond too, so we're going to take him back because we had him first. At least in the movies, obviously not in the books. And the next question is from Mr. Smelly Potato, and he wrote, if you could pick one movie to be released tomorrow that's never had a Blu-ray or 4K, or has been announced yet, what movie would you pick? Will you ever do another, and then the second question is, and I'll answer this first, is, will you ever do another full collection video to update your last one with all the new stuff you got since the last one? So actually, it's really funny you said this. I actually will be filming my 2024 collection video a week from Tuesday. So not this upcoming Tuesday, but a week from Tuesday, I will be shooting my entire 2024 collection video because I do want to cleanse the collection a little bit and then update you guys on everything I got from last year. So if you've seen the 2022 one, the 2023 one, there will be a 2024 one, and I want to make sure I try and do one every single year so you guys get to do those. I know a lot of people enjoy seeing the collection, and every year I do got to go in there and like kind of, straighten things up. I'm running out of room on certain shelves, so some movies are sitting on top of each other. So I know people like those, and I love making them, so I'm really actually looking forward to shooting that again. I really appreciate you guys checking those videos out. Thank you guys, and I'm looking forward to doing that. And back to your first question, and the one I always say is the movie My Life. That never came to Blu-ray or 4K Blu-ray. It's a movie that came out in the early 1990s starring Michael Keaton. Michael Keaton's a man who just gets cancer. He's married to Nicole Kidman, and it looks like it's going to be inoperable cancer, like he's going to die from it. So he wants to, and his wife, Nicole Kidman, she's pregnant with their first child, and it's believed that he's not going to make it. So he's making videotapes of himself to give to his child, but and also teaching him things that like he's not going to be able to teach him, like shaving or how to walk into a room. And I've just always loved that movie, and if I'm ever in need of a good cry, I either turn to that movie or Terms of Endearment. Those are the two movies that'll guaranteed to make me cry and still get me every single time. Michael Keaton, man, one of my all-time favorite actors. And this kind of came out at the time where people were like, oh, he's just Batman. So he was kind of doing some more dramatic roles. A little bit after, I think it was called Clean and Sober, which is also a good movie. But this is a very straightforward, very sad movie. But Michael Keaton is great. Nicole Kidman is great. So that's the movie I always go to. But another one you guys heard me talk about here on the channel before is The Empty Man. This was directed by David Pryor. And this movie never got a physical release at all. It's only gone to streaming. I think right now it's on Max. You can check it out there, and I recommend you do. It's the only movie ever directed by David Pryor. He did do one of those episodes for that Guillermo del Toro show that came out on Netflix last year, and it was actually my favorite episode on that show. So I know David Pryor can do it. I just feel like a lot of people didn't like The Empty Man, and that's kind of why I didn't get a physical release, but I really love the ambition of that movie. I also love the way that movie is shot. I love the sound design of the movie, and yes, it does get a little bit incoherent at times. It just feels like a guy who got his shot, and he just threw everything at the wall. It's just really one of those movies that I have always loved. I try and watch it at least once a year, and I would love to watch it on Blu-ray or 4K Blu-ray, preferably 4K Blu-ray. And I'm actually surprised that one of these studios, one of the boutique labels, actually haven't given us it on Blu-ray or 4K Blu-ray yet, because there are enough people out there who do talk about this movie. They just haven't been able to put it out on Blu-ray or 4K Blu-ray yet, and maybe, I don't know. I think it's a Warner Brothers film, so I'm a little bit confused. Just lease it out then if you don't want to do it, but maybe none of these boutique labels want to do it. Do you guys like The Empty Man? Am I on an island by myself? Let me know in the comment section, because that's a movie I absolutely love. It also has a really cool Stephen Root performance in there, so you guys should definitely check out The Empty Man if you haven't seen it yet. So those were some great questions. Thank you, Mr. Smelly Potato. I really appreciate that. And here's a good Kevin Kruger question. He said, what are your favorite scenes from the following movies? Big Daddy. Big Daddy is a great movie, and my favorite scene in that movie, it's a little stupid scene, but when they're playing with the sticks, and I mean, this is dangerous. I never thought about it, but it used to make me crack up when I was a kid. I actually saw Big Daddy in the theaters. They go to the park, they see rollerbladers, and Adam Sandler shows one of the Sprouse brothers how to basically throw a stick in front of the rollerbladers, which, might kill them, but who cares? They're sitting there laughing, and, it's a stupid Adam Sandler movie, but I always really enjoyed it. And that scene, when I was younger, really made me crack up.
My God, there's a stick there.
I guess they wouldn't do it today. I don't know. I don't know what gets canceled and what doesn't, but still, that's hysterical. Ocean's 11. I just rewatched this movie. My favorite scene in it, I really do enjoy the whole movie. It's really hard to pick something, but I do love the reveal at the end of, showing us what really happened in comparison to what we think happened, which I think is fantastic. I think that's great. Playing with our expectations, and then just showing your hand, essentially, what really happened and who the winner really is. And I just love the very end of this movie in Ocean's 11. And then you can even say the entire 11 standing in front of the fountains. And, the score playing, I love that too. It really sends everyone home happy. And I think it's a very special ending, and why Ocean's 11 is so much better than Ocean's 12 and 13. A Bronx Tale. Well, this one, and my favorite scene in the movie, is when Robert De Niro confronts Chaz Palminteri's character, which is funny because he wrote the movie and Robert De Niro directed the movie. I think it was his directorial debut. So it's, director confronting writer, and it's really funny. But I really like about this scene is how Robert De Niro's laying it out. Like, stay away from my kid. I want him to learn the proper way of living. And really is how people think about the world. Who's the right person? Who's the better man? Is it the hard worker or the person who took the easy way? Well, me personally, I always will say it's the hard worker, the blue collar worker. busting his ass every day to put food on the table, being mistreated and underpaid for the work he does, being undervalued. Yeah, I'm going to definitely always side with the Robert De Niro in this situation. I love their banter back and forth, and to say Robert De Niro is a world-class actor would just be an understatement, but that's my favorite part in that movie. And the next one's American Psycho, and it's really hard for me to actually pick a favorite scene in this movie. I love the scene with the business cards and how, you know, they basically all look the same, but those little differences are driving Christian Bale absolutely insane. But the best scene in this movie is when he kills Jared Leto's character. And he's talking about Huey Lewis in the News and Phil Collins. First of all, love Phil Collins, so I always love that. But Huey Lewis in the News talking about the album Sport might be their underrated masterpiece of the 1980s.
Four, their most accomplished album. I think their undisputed masterpiece is Hip to Be Square.
And because this movie is about 1980s yuppies, Jared Leto's in his own little world there. And he just doesn't even care what Christian Bale's doing in the background. You know, Christian Bale's grabbing the axe. He's putting overalls over his clothes so he doesn't get blood on them. He's laying out that painter's sheet, and then he just comes over and just blasts the shit out of Jared Leto in the face with an axe. You know, gets the blood spatter on him. And that's definitely the best scene in American Psycho. One of these days, I'll review that here on the channel, the 4K Blu-ray that is, which is a very good 4K Blu-ray. The next one up is Halloween 3, which is one of my favorites and is my favorite in the Halloween franchise. You know, it's not the best in the franchise, but I always enjoy Halloween 3, and I really feel like it gets a bad rep because of the Halloween name. If it was just called Season of the Witch, nobody would care, and they'd probably really enjoy this movie. And my favorite scene in this movie is actually the very end of it, because it's a very bold ending, and if you don't want to know anything about Halloween 3, skip ahead about, I don't know, about 30 seconds. But basically what happens is Tom Atkins, he's calling up the stations, he's saying to pull that commercial, and he's able to get them to pull the, you know, the Silver Shamrock commercial, the 2 of the 3, but the third one, that's it, and we see his kids about to watch that, so he knows they're going to get killed, and he can't stop it, and that's how they send us home, is on that cliffhanger, but we really know how it ends. It's a dark ending, and a lot of people are about to die, and I like that the way, I mean, I don't like that people are going to die, but that's a bold way to end Halloween 3, which really is underappreciated, so that's a great scene as well. And the next one up is The Whale, and I'm going to actually take a pass on this, because I only watched this movie once, and I don't really have a favorite scene. I actually don't really love this movie. It's a great performance in it, but the entire film itself doesn't really work for me. I'm really happy for Brendan Fraser. He really did deserve the Academy Award. He gives a great performance. The movie itself, though, overall, isn't one of my favorites, so I don't really have a favorite scene in it. I do have to rewatch, though, to be fair. And then the next one is Us. Us is a great movie, one of the better Jordan Peele movies, and actually is my favorite Jordan Peele movie. So to pick my favorite scene in this movie, I love the scene in the abandoned subway station towards the end where we have the tethered Lupita Nyong'o versus the real Lupita Nyong'o, and then of course we get the big other reveal at the very end of it. But I love the score in this moment, how they know each other's movements, how they're going along with the ballet, because of you, I learned ballet. Love that scene. And, I mean, the movie also has a lot of great scenes, a lot of dark scenes. You could even say that the scene where, you know, they have the NWA song playing while Elizabeth Moss and her family are being killed, that's a great scene as well. Very sad for the family, but great scene.
Hello?
Oh my god!
And then the last one is Terminator 2. What is my favorite scene in Terminator 2? Well, the one that always pops in my head is the final chase and towards the end of the movie when they're on the highway heading to the steel mill there, and they fly the helicopter under the bridge, which always fascinates me because that's James Cameron who really shot them doing that, because no other cameraman would do it. But yeah, the flying the helicopter, really flew a helicopter under an overpass like that. It's absolutely insane. I always just think about that chase scene, and that's my favorite scene in Terminator 2, is that chase scene to the steel mill. You know, he's in the pickup truck. I just love everything about that. Practical effects. I just love that scene in Terminator 2. Terminator 2 is one of the greatest movies ever. The way they shot that movie, the way that movie looks, it's basically a masterpiece, so it's really hard to pick a favorite scene, but if I had to, that would be my favorite scene. So that was a great question, Kevin, as well. Thank you so much, buddy. And the next Kevin Kruger question is, who do you think is the better actor, Brad Pitt or Harrison Ford? Well, this is actually pretty easy for me. I do love Brad Pitt, and I do think he's a great actor, a very underrated actor. Many people just get caught up on his looks, but I still do think Harrison Ford is the better actor. I mean, between movies like The Fugitive, the Indiana Jones franchise, the Star Wars franchise. Yes, you know, Star Wars franchise. I don't think he's like the greatest actor. He's in an ensemble cast, but Indiana Jones, I couldn't imagine anybody else. And then, of course, you had Rick Deckard in Blade Runner, one of my all-time favorite films. He is great in that movie. Again, just showing off his acting chops. Movies like Witness, which I think are just phenomenal and completely underrated. Mosquito Coast, that is a great movie as well. Not the most rewatchable movie, but it is a fantastic Harrison Ford movie. You know, as much as I love love Brad Pitt. He deserved his Academy Award for Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. You know, I'll go to bat for him, but if you're going to be comparing these guys head to head, I'm giving the edge to Harrison Ford. What do you guys think? Brad Pitt, Harrison Ford? Let me know in the comment section. And now on to our last question of the week. And this is also from Mr. Smelly Potato. It's a good question. He wrote, rank these classic Disney afternoon shows. Darkwing Duck, Goof Troop, DuckTales, Chip and Dale Rescue Rangers, Gargoyles, Aladdin, Tailspin, Gummy Bears, Bonkers, and Mighty Ducks. So I did actually rank these, but I actually haven't seen all of these shows. I was a Nick kid growing up, so I didn't really dabble too much in Disney, but I did see some of these shows, so I did my best in this area, mainly because I haven't seen all of them. The ones I haven't seen were Gargoyles, Gummy Bears, Tailspin, and Bonkers. So the 6 that I had seen, I'll go number 6 at the bottom. Aladdin, I remember the show, but I was only really a big fan of the movie. I didn't even like the, Disney used to put out those direct-to-VHS sequels, which are always horrible, like The Lion King 1.5 or 2.5 or whatever they were. Never had the same voice actor, so I did watch Aladdin, didn't really care too much for it. Chip and Dale Rescue Rangers, I actually prefer the movie that came out a couple years ago, starring Andy Samberg. That movie is absolutely hysterical, has a great Sonic joke in there you guys should check out.
I'm gonna be up on that stage too, right beside you.
Yes, Ugly Sonic, that's the spirit.
They'll like me for who I am. Not like last time when the internet got one look at my human teeth and burned the place down.
But that is a great movie. The show itself that it's based on is pretty good. I remember that as well. Number 4, DuckTales. This I do fondly remember, and this is also a really good fun show. I remember my stepsister really liked this show. And at number 3, Darkwing Duck. This is a very famous show, but another one that I wasn't the most attached to. I really know more now for the memes. Number 2, Goof Troop. Now, Goof Troop, I really do remember, mainly because, again, the movies. I was always a movie guy more than a TV show guy. So I remember the movies. The Goofy movie is fantastic. I even really like the sequel to that, which a lot of people might not remember because it didn't get a theatrical release. But the original one also wasn't supposed to get a theatrical release, but it eventually did. They were able to somehow persuade the big bosses at Disney to give it to it. And the show that it's based on is still really good. If you like the movies, you'll like the show. And then at number 1, I always wear the hat, the Mighty Ducks. Obviously, I prefer the movies, grew up with the movies, but the animated show is really good. I didn't get to watch that Disney Plus show that came out a couple years ago, which I think is a continuation. I think they even got Emilio Estevez back, but I never watched that show. I didn't really feel the need to run back, but the animated show was a lot of fun, and that was probably, other than The Proud Family, my favorite Disney Channel show. Just wasn't the biggest Disney person growing up. Like, I'd watch I was really a Nick kid. That's really where it was for me. Didn't really dabble too much in Cartoon Network or the Disney Channel. I was a Nick kid, and really, I got into like sports and wrestling at a very young age, and really adult-themed movies, just because my parents really didn't care what I was watching. So I got into adult stuff and stuff I really shouldn't have been watching in elementary school. So, the way I watch things as a child was a little bit different from other people, but I think it's really what made me the movie fan that I am today. But anyway, guys, that's going to do it here for me on another episode of Let's Talk Physical Media. I really hope you guys enjoyed this week's show, and if you did, don't forget to like it, hit that subscribe button, turn notifications on, share the video if you could, maybe become a channel member. We do have a Friends of the Channel tier. We have our Producers tier. We're going to find John Doe Juggler, Jason Martin, and Mr. Smelly Potato. And we also have a Directors tier. We're going to find Frank from Frank's Media and Reviews. Check out all the perks for those memberships in the description below. And if you got no money to throw away, guys, don't you worry about it. We just appreciate you checking out this video. We hope you enjoyed it. And if you did, get out in those streets, tell your friends about us, and then we'll be seeing you around.